What is going on, YouTube? It's been 6 months since Apple released the iPhone 15 lineup. So in this video, we're going to go over, is it still good 6 months later? So as you can see, I'm holding the iPhone 15 Pro Max. The 15 Pro is the same thing but smaller. And I don't have an iPhone 15, but we'll just go over the whole general lineup as best I can. But all in all, the design is pretty much the same. Just the iPhone 15 will probably be a little less quality because it doesn't use this titanium finish. So speaking of design, let's go ahead and go into that. So as I mentioned, this is titanium. This is the natural gray color. I personally think it is the best of the colors just because this year the color way has been definitely on the muted side. So it's not as interesting as it was even last year. So as you can see, it's a camera bump. These cameras are pretty big, but it's for a good reason. So the design holds up pretty well. I mean, titanium feels a little different. If you're used to the 14, definitely you'll notice the design does feel a little different. It's not as heavy. It's not as dense. If you hold the 14 and the 15 Pro Max, you will think the 14 honestly feels more premium than the 15. So it's not per se less premium, it just feels lighter and maybe not as premium, but the design definitely holds up, as you can see. So you won't go wrong there. If you like the design, then cool, but overall it's pretty good. You have the dynamic island. It's starting to get used more by developers, so that's cool. The biggest thing here, in my opinion, is the USB-C port. If you've been an iPhone user your whole life, then you know that Lightning can be a nightmare to deal with, especially if you charge your phone using this port, as Lightning often breaks down rather quickly. Especially the pins that hold it together, it breaks down quickly. And dealing with Lightning can be a nightmare sometimes, especially if you transfer data off this thing. So the USB-C port is a definite positive in my opinion, and it was much needed, and I'm glad they did it. But yeah, I think that's a big change there. Something I've always wanted, and I'm glad I got. 6 months later, I am definitely not missing Lightning. So that's one thing I will say. If you do switch over, you will not miss the Lightning port. Just saying. Also, the iPhone 15 Pro and Pro Max has the action button. I've put it to good use, and I think it's a good change. Not many people will like it, but I do think it's a step in the right direction because you can program this thing to do many other things than just that one that Apple has by default. But we'll go into that later in the video. But action button is a positive in my opinion. So overall, the design is great. I think it holds up well 6 months later. So now we're going to go over the display real quick. So this display is the high end, as you expect. It has 120 hertz. It's an OLED panel. It goes to 1 hertz when you're on the always on part. And as I demonstrate in a little bit, the dynamic island is starting to be used more, so it's becoming more of a useful part, not just a gimmick. So all in all, the display is really good. It's what you expect from a flagship phone. It has all the features like HDR and such, so you won't go wrong. As I mentioned earlier on, with most of the features, it's all going to be in the Pro models. So if you plan to upgrade, I just recommend, as I said earlier, to just get the Pro model, get all the feature proofing and the best display possible as of right now. But I do my best to showcase everything about the display. So I'm going to do my best to kind of show off the colors of the display. It's not going to really be as good as if you were to look at it in person, because it's through a camera and then through YouTube. But as I mentioned, the color accuracy is really good. It has 120 hertz, so everything just feels smooth as you would expect. All the animations and stuff are top notch. This does support pretty much the best in terms of HDR so Dolby Vision, HDR10 and all that. So if you like to watch movies like Netflix or even just straight up movies, you're probably going to enjoy it. The display is going to do well in terms of outputting color. It does get really bright on HDR content. I didn't really show it here, but it does do really well, especially because of that Dolby Vision support. And some displays had some calibration issues, like color tinting and the like, but I believe they patched it all. As I mentioned, with 17.4, they patched a lot of stuff. So more than likely, the problem is no longer present. So as you see, I try to do my best to show off the display, but all in all, it's really, really good. So now we're going to go over the battery section. So as you know, batteries are really important. You want your phone to last all day when you use it and charge quickly when you need to charge it. And manufacturers know this. That's why every time you see a presentation, they always talk about the battery. And the iPhone, I can say after 6 months of using it nonstop, they nailed the battery really well. So if you have the iPhone 14, then you know that that was not the case. That battery was really terrible. After even a year of using it, you would probably be at 80% capacity or high 80s, low 90s in terms of capacity. And that is not good at all, especially if you plan to keep the phone for over a year. You would basically have to replace the battery, and that's not good because you know how hard those are to replace. So the iPhone 15 definitely did a 180 on that. As you can see, I've been using it for 6 months. The battery is still at 100%. It's at full power. Nothing has degraded. And that's what you want. You want to keep this phone for over a year. This is perfect for you. Now, some things I do to improve that possibility. One will be this right here. Charging it to 80%. Basically, if you charge your battery to 100%, that kills it faster. It reduces this number here, and this is what you don't want, capacity. You want to keep that as close to 100 as you can. So this 80% limit option here really helps. And I just don't understand why these are not on older iPhones. This 80% option is only on the 15 lineup, and I just don't get it. And it would really help a lot of people conserve the battery and keep it running for longer. And now on iOS 17.4, they did improve this setting even more. I don't have it on this phone, but when you click the button I did here, you'll see a lot more information that will help you understand your battery's health and how to keep it running longer. So all in all, 6 months later, this is definitely a positive for the iPhone 15 lineup, especially if you plan to keep this phone for over a year or 2 years. This is a win. They really took the battery seriously this year, and that's a good thing. So definitely gives a thumbs up in the batteries department. So now we're going to go over some of the features that separate this phone from, let's say, the base version. Most of the features are going to be in the camera section, and of course the new action button. So this button right here, you can program to pretty much do anything you want. Apple has some defaults that you can choose from, but you can basically set it up to where any shortcut can be used. And of course, Siri shortcuts is basically a scripting app where you can tell it to do certain things. Like when you get home, you can have it turn on the lights, or if you say, hey, call this person, it'll initiate a call or a text using shortcuts. So it's kind of like a programmable app, pretty much. So, but here are the defaults as you see. But the biggest feature is going to be the action button. Now I have it set to a custom shortcut called Flippity Doodah, which was I found from another YouTuber, Snazzy Labs. So if you want to check out the full breakdown of that, then definitely check out his video on it. But basically what it does is when you turn your phone certain ways, each action has a function. So So for example, if I have it this way, I have it programmed to open the magnifier. If we turn it this way, this will activate the camera more than, I think. Yeah, activate the camera. And if you turn it this way, it will turn on orientation lock. Yeah, see, orientation lock is on. So it's a really cool feature. That's one of the major features of this phone is the action button, of course USB-C, and the dynamic island. They're starting to use it more. But all in all, it's not much to go off of. The only thing I would say, if you're planning on upgrading and you care about the features, is the camera. So if you're a high-end shooter, or if you like to do a lot of pictures and videos, let's say of your kids, or if you just like to record what you're doing, activities, then this phone definitely is going to be a must for you, because it has a lot of features that the base version doesn't have. And 6 months into this phone, they added some other things too. So it just gets better and better as time goes on. They keep adding or refining features. So all in all, I think the biggest ones, if you're looking for features, is camera, the action button, and USB-C. So you can count the display too, because it's really good, but those are pretty much the major features you would consider if you want to get this phone. As mentioned, 6 months later, it definitely got better. So I do recommend, especially the camera, if you like to take pictures or video, you can't get any better than this. And of course, on the iPhone side, there are plenty of Android options, but when it comes to iPhone, this is as good as it will get until the new one comes out. But yeah, those are all the features that are worth mentioning. So now we're going to wrap up the video. 6 months later, the iPhone 15 and 15 Pro hold up really well. I think really it's the Pro lines that will benefit you the most in terms of upgrading. If you're coming from a 14, I would only upgrade to the 15 Pro if you care about battery, because as I mentioned, they really did themselves with the battery. The battery on this phone is incredible. They took it seriously this year, as the iPhone 14 did not do so well with battery. That's really the only thing I think is worth upgrading from the 14 lineup, because as I mentioned, the battery is just not going to hold up well, and you're going to have to replace it. So you might as well just replace the phone and get the 15 Pro. Now, if you're going to upgrade from an older phone, I highly recommend getting the 15 Pro or Pro Max, because all of the upgrades, like the faster USB-C port and better cameras, better battery, a really good display, faster processor, it's all in the Pros lineup. The iPhone 15 and 15 Plus just kind of got a, oh, here's an upgrade just to make it symmetrical. None of the big features came in that phone. It's all here in the Pro line. So if you're going to upgrade now, I just recommend spending the extra money and getting the 15 Pro or Pro Max, because that's where all your future proofing is. You're going to probably hold this for more than a year. So I just recommend spending the extra money and future proofing yourself and getting the Pro lineup. It has all the stuff you need, and you won't be disappointed. I think this phone holds up well 6 months into its life cycle, and yeah, you just can't go wrong. The only thing I would probably knock on it is that the charging speeds could be faster. It is still kind of slow, and you know, that's really it. I mean, the titanium holds up well, and you won't be disappointed. They fixed a lot of the bugs, so don't worry about that. This phone is really stable now, especially with iOS 17.4 that just came out. They fixed even more stuff, so you just can't go wrong. Upgrade to the 15 Pro or Pro Max if you plan to. Otherwise, just get an older phone and maybe wait for next year. But yeah, that's my take on the iPhone 15 lineup 6 months later. And I hope this helped you make a decision. If it did, you know, please show me some love. Give me a subscribe or like. If you have any questions or anything or concerns, leave a comment and I'll do my best to answer them. And let me know what you think 6 months later. Does this iPhone hold up? Until then, I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.